We're going to go back to our top story, and that's, of course, Donald Trump, who's just landed in Zurich and who is now on his way to Davos, Switzerland, to address delegates at the World Economic Forum. This, of course, as his rhetoric over Greenland continues to intensify. We can now bring in Larry Sabato, founder and director at the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Donald Trump will be coming face-to-face with a largely, one could argue, hostile crowd at Davos. Do you think that that very fact will change or soften his rhetoric when it comes to Greenland?
I don't believe it will have any impact at all. In fact, it may intensify it. Donald Trump does not act rationally in these circumstances, and I think the whole world knows that. They've had 5 years of his presidencies to get used to him and his method of operation, which is basically chaos. Threats, chaos, retribution, revenge. Whether it has an impact or not, he will insist upon what he has outlined already, which is somehow taking over Greenland, which isn't going to happen. He will reach some kind of compromise, probably lifting some or all of the tariffs. He changes his mind from day to day and hour to hour. But people looking for immediate relief are not going to get it. And, of course, even if he gives them some relief, he can take it back the next day.
Larry, you know that over the past year, European leaders have essentially kowtowed to Donald Trump. That strategy hasn't worked. But even if they were to stand up to the U.S. president, what would we likely see happen? Is that the end of the transatlantic relationship as we know it? Or are we going to see some full-fledged trade war between the two sides?
We're certainly headed for a trade war. I don't think it makes any sense for the United States either. That may be the saving grace here. Perhaps that will deter Trump in the long run or the short run. But for the time being, I think people have to recognize that groveling before Trump does not work. He only respects strength. That doesn't mean he's going to give in, but he only respects strength. In that sense, he's just like Vladimir Putin. And that's something European leaders have never understood fully, and they certainly haven't acted on it. Though I would say the French president has done much better than certain other European leaders, such as the British prime minister.
How does Donald Trump's base view all his arguments for expanding U.S. territory suddenly? Because not only did he capture Nicolas Maduro earlier this month? He then went on to threaten Cuba. Once again, he's threatening Canada based on images he's been putting out from his official account. Greenland. What does his base have to think about all of this? Because he promised to be a non-interventionist president.
Yes, he did promise that. His base, of course, follows him blindly for the most part, but that's only about a third of the American population. 2/3 do not follow him blindly, and in fact are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with the performance of his administration. Inflation has not lessened, and the effects of prices have continued. They haven't lowered, despite his promise that they would be lowered on the first day of his new administration. And that's the central focus of most Americans. His base is concerned about inflation, too. They're concerned about prices, too. They give him the benefit of the doubt anytime they can. But they're also coming to the end of the rope because they're seeing very little coming out of it. Whether it will have any impact on Trump, again, he's in office for 3 more years. You know, if he only had a year to go, I think we'd all find ways to survive, and we'd all find ways to maneuver around Trump. But he has 3 more years, and that's a long time in anybody's book.
I want to ask you about another pet project, vanity project of Donald Trump's. It's appeared out of nowhere, this Gaza Board of Peace, which seems like his version, his alternative to the United Nations, even though, as we know from history, the United Nations didn't just appear overnight. We had the League of Nations, and then gradually over decades, we now have the United Nations today. As flawed as it is, as ineffective as the United Nations is, it's still it brings all countries together and has some certain clout. Donald Trump's Gaza Board of Peace doesn't seem to be coming off the ground very easily. We just have the United Arab Emirates, Israel, Egypt, and just a handful of countries who are willing to jump on board.
Yes, it's no substitute for the UN. It's laughable to think that it ever would be. It's partly about money, as it always is with Donald Trump, a price tag of $1 billion per country. And who controls that money, or who will control it? Donald Trump. Something we've learned in this term, he tried this in the first term, it didn't work so well. This term, everything has a cut for Donald Trump and his family. Everything. And that is part of the underpinning of this peace board. Inviting Vladimir Putin tells you all you need to know about what Trump has in mind. He's going to get as many countries as possible that need Donald Trump for one thing or another to pay $1 billion into Donald Trump's slush fund. This is going to be no substitute for the United Nations, and it certainly isn't going to provide peace for Gaza either.
We'll see what comes out of Donald Trump's speech later on today at Davos. Larry Sabato, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much.